Welcome everyone to Gamer Meld. I wasn't planning to do a video today with my Ryzen 7000 non-X review out, to which make sure to check that out if you haven't, but there's just news that I have to cover. Starting with the new Noctua GPU, Nvidia cards are about to get a free performance boost. Two new Nvidia GPUs, Ryzen 7000 X3D wins at another thing, and new RX 7000 GPUs. But first, if you aren't subscribed, make sure to hit that button as well as the bell icon so you can stay up to date on all things PC hardware. Okay, it's news time, and first up for today, Asus and Noctua are at it again. If you remember a little while back, Noctua, who is well known in the PC world for their really amazing fans as well as fairly iconic yet pretty ugly colors, teamed up to make their first GPU in the RTX 3070. Now, I do believe they later made a 3080, but they are back yet again with Nvidia's newest generation of RTX 4000 cards, specifically the RTX 4080. And when we look at it, we can see that it's fairly similar once again to that 3070 as well as the 3080 design. And once again, yes, they are partnered with Asus. But one thing that's pretty wild, this bad boy is a whopping 5 slots thick. 5. And once again, this is a 4080, not a 4090. Now, with that said, I will definitely say that from what I'd seen, the Noctua cards with the 3000 series were very well received, so we'll obviously have to wait and see how this ends up. But 5 slots, I mean, if this isn't one of the quietest GPUs ever, I really don't see it being worth it. As far as the cooler itself, it does have fluid dynamic bearings, and it does in fact promise to make this the quietest air-cooled RTX 4080 that you can buy. And that is obviously interesting, but at the same time, like I said, it had better be with how massive this card is. And next up for today, we actually have a really interesting tweet from CapFrameX. For those who don't know, CapFrameX is a capture and analysis tool, and because of that, they do likely have some really good contacts with AMD, Nvidia, Intel, all of them. And from them, now they are calling this a rumor, but once again, this is almost certainly from a very good contact within the company. But either way, according to this, it says Nvidia is working on AI optimized drivers, and they're planning on releasing it maybe even this year, Q1. Now, the reason this is such a big deal is because it says up to 30% more performance. So this is literally just drivers that have been optimized by AI, and it ends up giving upwards of 30% more performance for free, obviously, because this would be a driver. Now, one of the quick questions that I would ask is, which GPUs does this work for? We know going all the way back to the 20 series that they do have tensor cores that are good at driving AI performance, but we've also seen Nvidia do things like only add, say, DLSS 3 to their newest RTX 4000 cards. So which GPUs will this support? I'd be willing to bet this will almost certainly only work on their newest 4000 cards, but at the same time, when we say AI optimized drivers, that doesn't necessarily mean that it actually has to have some kind of AI specific core. That just means the AI took the drivers and made them better. So maybe, just maybe, we will actually see older GPUs get this performance boost. Either way, they are claiming an average improvement of 10%, and once again, as it says actually right here, no info about specific generation of GPUs. Either way, this is really interesting, especially because just recently AMD made their announcement that they're clearly going to begin focusing more on AI, as their upcoming Ryzen 7040 series are going to include Ryzen AI, which is a new term that they've now coined, referring to new AI processing in their CPUs and probably upcoming GPUs. And what's interesting is that they did actually reference AI making things like their pipeline faster, just optimizing certain things in their GPUs, though once again, this is a little bit different because this is actual AI cores. So this is the AI fixing things in real time, while here, what it sounds like, AI actually just optimized their drivers. So you shouldn't need any kind of dedicated AI cores to handle anything in real time that is AI. They're just optimizing their drivers. Then whenever they put them out, it should just work. And you can see down here that he actually replied to Digital Foundry, and They were wondering what exactly would the AI be optimizing. And he states instructions, throughput, hardware utilization, threading, settings. So there are quite a bit of things that this is apparently going to be making better. So maybe, just maybe, it will require AI cores. Either way, like I said, my prediction probably going to be that they're going to put this strictly on the 4000 series. But of course, hopefully I'm wrong. And next up for today, we actually have a new report from WCCF Tech, who claims to have gotten some very new information about Nvidia's upcoming GPUs, specifically some new RTX 4000 cards. Starting things off, he claims that these SKUs are based on the 8104 die. In fact, we are talking the 8104-250 and 8104-251. And from what I see, I believe, yeah, the 250 is set to be the 4060 Ti and the 251 would be the 4070. Now, he also claims that both of these GPUs have a 200-watt TGP, though that will most definitely change, but apparently the 4060 Ti, the 250 GPU SKU, is set to first hit production in the second half of February, with the 251 SKU ready for mass production in the second half of March. He further claims that we probably won't really see the cards until the second half of 2023. And then he later goes on to discuss a previous rumor, basically claiming that the 4070 would come with 5,888 CUDA cores, 12 gigabytes of GDDR6X VRAM at 21 gigabits per second, 36 megabytes of L2 cache, 250 watt TGP, then the 4060 Ti, and this is actually something that will have changed. According to that rumor, it used the 8106 GPU, while obviously this one is set to use the 8104-250. Either way, those cards don't look to be too far off. And really quickly on the 4060 Ti, that one, while the 4070 would have 5,888, the 4060 Ti, if this earlier rumor is correct, would have 4,352. Moving on, we have a new update on Nvidia's upcoming Ryzen 7000 X3D parts, specifically the Ryzen 9 7950 X3D. And what's interesting about this is that, as you can see, the 7950 X3D actually has a lower maximum operating temperature of 89 degrees Celsius versus the 95 degrees Celsius of the 7950X. Meaning the 7950 X3D, while not only having a lower TDP, it's also said to have a lower maximum operating temperature. And of course, that should be good for the silicon. It should make it last a little bit longer. Just operating at lower temps is always a good thing. And of course, if you haven't seen one of my earlier videos that went over some new information on this, almost certainly the reason they're able to do that is because they effectively have two sets of chiplets. One chiplet is going to have cores that get up to 5.7 gigahertz, while the other chiplet will have slower cores, or at least cores that they aren't going to let get that high of clocks. And this is probably one of the main reasons why this doesn't have to operate at such high temps, although I will say that I looked it up and it looks like even the 7800 X3D runs at 89 degrees Celsius, so this obviously doesn't really help those CPUs, but it does help the 7950 X3D versus the 7950X, and that's really interesting because, as you remember, it gets a serious jump in performance, at least when it comes to games. As you can see right here, we're talking upwards of 24% more frames when compared to the 13,900K. And of course, it's also doing that at lower temps and at a much lower TDP. And that's pretty bad for Intel because the 13,900K already sucks quite a bit of wattage. So the fact that AMD is able to lower wattage, lower temps, and get more performance than Intel's 13th gen best, at least for now until their KS model, that is very impressive. And lastly for today, we have a new story on AMD's upcoming RX 7000 GPUs. This story comes from Red Gaming Tech, and in their video, they actually go over specs of the upcoming cards. Starting things off, we have the RX 7800 XT, which actually comes with 60 CUs and 16 gigabytes of memory across a 256-bit bus. Now, what's interesting about this, you may notice, is that that core count is actually less than the 6800 XT, which comes with 72 compute units. But if you saw my video on this a little while back, you know that AMD's newest GPUs technically, sort of, in a way, have double the cores versus last gen. Now, they don't actually state that in their specs, but AMD themselves have, in a way, confirmed it. They basically said, well, yes, if you look at it that way, it does have double the cores per CU, that is, not double the cores total, but just double the cores per CU. So it's almost like this has 120 CUs, though not really. I explained it better in an earlier video, but basically that 60 CU looks way worse than what it really is. Not only that, but according to Red Gaming Tech, he's actually hearing that the clocks are significantly higher on these lower end SKUs to where, say, the 7800 XT is actually fairly close to their 7900 parts. So this definitely will be an interesting launch. And of course, after that, we do have the RX 7800 with 54 CUs, also 16 gigabytes of memory across a 256-bit bus. Then we have the RX 7700 XT with 48 CUs and 12 gigabytes of memory across a 192-bit bus. Basically, AMD is ramping up to release a bunch of new GPUs, so is Nvidia, so this will obviously get interesting as we go on, especially given we're reaching a point where these GPUs are more mainstream rather than the absolute top of the line, absurdly expensive. Hopefully the prices aren't still absurdly expensive, but of course we shall see. So while that does it for today, what are you most excited for? AMD's lower end GPUs or Nvidia's? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please subscribe, and as always, have a great day.